Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Beastyqt versus VortiX. This is game number 1 in a best of 5 in the Swiss stage of the $100,000 N4C from Berlin. I am commentating from offsite, which means that I'm receiving the full live image feed that you're seeing on the screen right now with all the fancy overlays and whatnot, but I'm adding my commentary as an offsite commentator. Spawning in on the southern part of the map, we're going to have the Delhi Sultanate in the hands of Beastyqt, and up north, you're going to have VortiX utilizing the Holy Roman Empire in blue. So, bit of a surprising opening here for VortiX. He's definitely a person that does not shy away from using unique strategies, using some rather crazy approaches in one game or another. So I'm curious to see how the HRE is going to match up against the Delhi over here, because the Delhi is one of the juggernauts of the rank ladder right now. Very powerful food economy thanks to the berries. Very much capable of capitalizing on map control by using the sacred site, using the extra berries. So this is going to be a tough nut to crack for VortiX. Now, there is one positive thing here for VortiX for using the HRE, however, and that is the ability to potentially take away Beasty's Delhi while himself sort of sacrificing a slightly weaker civilization. Because if you ask 95% of the people which is the stronger of the two civilizations, most people would say, oh yeah, it's Delhi being the stronger. So if VortiX is able to win here with the HRE, that's going to be a win for two reasons. First, he keeps his own Delhi alive, and second, he's going to take away one of the strongest civilizations from the opponent, Beasty. Up north, as I said, he is playing as the blue HRE. So far, he has been playing a very standard Dark Age opening. On the other side, it looks like we're going to have quite a lot of sheep collected here for Beasty. Not something that's going to have a significant effect at the beginning, because he's going to be taking the berries anyways. But as a backup food source, it's actually pretty good. Meanwhile, on the other side, Lumber Camp is just now being dropped by VortiX, and we're going to have the Aachen Chapel being placed very soon. There's a perfect Aachen Chapel spot right where he's placing it exactly. It could have been slightly better if it was one tile closer to the gold mine, just so that it's able to affect more villagers if you have a lot of villagers surrounding that gold mine, because it still would have affected the villagers around the town center and on the wood line. But that's a near perfect Aachen Chapel spot for VortiX over there. Meanwhile, on the other side, we have a mosque already. For Beastyqt, nothing else on the horizon. Now let's talk a little bit about these two players over here while we have a bit of a Dark Age pause over here, so to say. No combat for the next 1 or 2 minutes. So Beastyqt is one of the players that grinds Age of Empires for the most. He's playing 6, 7, 8 hours on the rank ladder, and it's really showing in his skills. He's also very heavily meta-focused, which means that he's playing traditional, he's got standard build orders, and he's executing them well. Whereas for VortiX, he's the complete opposite. He's a player that barely plays ladder, or at least not on his main account. We barely see any gameplay from him other than tournaments, and he's a player that is very innovative, doesn't shy away from new strategies. So in many ways, VortiX is a lot more unpredictable than Beastyqt, and I wonder if that's going to be a factor for this set. Because VortiX could very well scout what Beasty is usually doing in his games, so it's difficult for Beasty to show something brand new to VortiX, because he has used so many things on his streams and ranked games before. Of course, it doesn't mean that Beasty cannot show anything new, but it's going to be a little more difficult to show something new for Beasty than it is to show something new for VortiX. Up to Feudal Age will be both of our players very soon. Currently, villager counts are dead even, as you would expect. And it seems like we're going to have the Dome of Faith come in here for Beasty. No surprise about there. Tower of Victory would be a quite ambitious choice, if I may say so, in a $100,000 tournament. Barracks now being dropped here by VortiX. And one of the options that the HRE have over here in Feudal Age is Men-at-Arms. Now, Men-at-Arms is a very tricky approach here for the HRE. First of all, it could be great against Spearmen and Archers, and this might be the game plan for VortiX. You know that the Delhi wants to go up with most likely Spears and Archers to try and take the sacred sites, and Men-at-Arms could be a great answer to that. Now, the problem with the Men-at-Arms is that, first of all, they don't fare that well against Horsemen. Especially if you have the ability to heal back the Horsemen, like the Delhi has. The Delhi can just pull away weak Horsemen, heal it back up with the Scholars, and then engage again. The other thing that you have to consider is that the Men-at-Arms are quite expensive for a Feudal Age economy, and their Pierce armor isn't spectacular. It's a decent amount of ranged armor, But you have to consider something. Mass archers in Feudal Age will beat man-at-arms, and there is the first man-at-arms coming in here for VortiX. This is a risky approach, a very risky approach, in fact, and I feel like horsemen and archers would just clap this composition, and VortiX isn't messing around. He isn't messing around at all, he's going for triple barracks. Now you might ask, why are we not seeing the Minewerk Palace in this case? Because the Minewerk Palace is something that you can justify if you're going for man-at-arms aggression. You want to grab the upgrades, especially the range defense upgrade, for your man-at-arms at the beginning. However, if you use the Minewerk Palace, that means that your eco is going to be much, much weaker. By having the Aachen Chapel, you have a pretty good economy. The problem that I'm seeing over here is that the man-at-arms are super expensive, they lack mobility, and I'm really unsure if they are able to take good fights over here, especially against horsemen and mass archers. For the time being, it looks like it's just going to be man-at-arms defense for VortiX. Beasty is also getting all those important eco upgrades, of course, with the Delhi. He already has wheelbarrow, he's researching the lumberjacking, mining, and the food upgrade as well. Whereas on the other side, not a single upgrade right now for VortiX. Archer range already out as well for Beasty, and he will likely follow this up with a blacksmith, so he can start grabbing the blacksmith upgrades as well. This will be the first time that VortiX spots the horseman coming forward, so he's likely going to start mixing in spearmen over here. He's gonna have to. And where are those man-at-arms going? Oh, they're hiding in the town center. Gotta love that. This is something that many pro players do, hide their forces inside the town center, making it more difficult for the opponent to spot them. Now, if you see free barracks from the HRE, though, I think it's fairly obvious that you're talking about the man-at-arms play. So, there's only two civilizations with Feudal Age man-at-arms, that being the HRE and the English. So, if you're seeing multiple barracks, you can suspect a man-at-arms play out there. We could see the horsemen move in for a brief moment trying to harass the gold miners. Sanctity is 40 seconds away for Beasty here, so he's almost ready to capture those sacred sites. Now, if you haven't seen my other cast, the Lidakor vs Mista set, I just want to quickly point out that, as I said, I'm receiving a clean feed here, which means that I'm not controlling the camera. I'm just getting the image that you see on the screen, and I'm adding my own voiceover out here. This is the streaming policy of the event. Any commentator that's not on site is eligible to commentate off-site, and they are receiving a clean feed, just like you see it right now. With that being said, the man-at-arms are marching up, and I love how VortiX was patient and he massed those man-at-arms. One or two man-at-arms won't do much here. Now, if you have 9, that's actually pretty scary, because you need a lot of archers to deal with them. Mass archers will beat Feudal Age man-at-arms, especially if the man-at-arms don't have the range defense upgrade, but that many man-at-arms could cause a lot of chaos, and that's exactly what they're going for. They will run straight underneath the town center, and they're realizing that ranged armor is enough to withstand a lot of arrow fire from the town center, allowing you to start killing off villagers. You're going to lose your men-at-arms, but your opponent is going to lose their army and many villagers, and the key thing here is that Beasty has his entire eco idle, and that's the most important thing right now. Beasty is unable to get her resources. You see, all of his lumberjacks are idle. 19 out of 20, now 20 out of 20 units in that town center, and the men-at-arms are still alive. The men-at-arms are still alive, and Beasty was probably expecting the men-at-arms, but not in such large numbers, and now you see it's just an absolute rampage. The Wolf and the Scout joining up arms against that Scholar in the middle. Not a single sacred site capture, and the men-at-arms are still working wonders over here. Rarely do we see a Holy Roman Empire men-at-arms opening, and boy oh boy does this work well. And as you see, it's just impossible right now for Beasty to access resources. Men-at-arms are still trickling through the map over here, and they are just starting to kill off villagers. Villager count is still rather close, but if you look at the income per minute, VortiX's eco is going to skyrocket compared to the opponent, and the most important thing is that the sacred sites are just a distant dream right now for Beasty, or are they? Because they're slowly cleaning up the men-at-arms, and we've been talking about this. The men-at-arms are extremely expensive for a Feudal Age economy. Scholars also being used to heal up the injured archers over here, and the men-at-arms are slowly being picked apart. Maybe if they try to find value elsewhere, just deny the wood income, the gold income, it would have been slightly better. Because fighting for so long underneath the town center is definitely something that impacted their overall HP, but the men-at-arms are still coming in, decapping sacred sites the moment they're captured. And you gotta wonder, what's Beasty's economy going to look like after he cleans this aggression up? Because he's going to clean it up, that's not a question. The question is, what is going to remain out of his economy, and what's going to be the status of VortiX's eco? Now, after all those men-at-arms have been cleaned up, VortiX is now pretty low on food, pretty low on gold, and while he definitely impacted the opponent's economy, he wasn't particularly successful killing villagers. In fact, he's got 32 villagers to fight against, and he himself has 33, so basically no eco advantage was gained by having that aggression up, aside from idling a ton of villagers. Now, he was also able to prevent the opponent from capping the sacred sites, but this is just a temporary thing. That's the problem here for VortiX. And now that you see the horseman numbers rise and no spearmen appearing on the battlefield, the archers and the horsemen can suddenly start taking good fights against those men-at-arms, especially if the scholars heal up those damaged horsemen. Horsemen actually is a reasonable response to the men-at-arms. As long as there is no spearman on the battlefield, this composition works extremely well for the Beasty, and now he's starting to wall himself up in the middle. We also have the sacred site on the left side being captured, and down south there's an attack notification going off that is just one scout harassing the berry villagers of Beastyqt right now. Look at that, he's got 1,000 food per minute. That's the Delhi berry power, and if you look at the other side, it's 600 per minute for VortiX, and the sacred sites are being captured. I feel like the man-at-arms opening was definitely intriguing, but there is a reason why that's not commonly done. I really loved the mastermind of VortiX over here sending in the man-at-arms because that attack was very intriguing. And against weaker players, it probably would have even worked, killing so many villagers. But Beasty was able to clean this up very effectively, and now Beasty is in a commanding position. He's got the berries working for him, he's got 2 sacred sites, and now the HRE is on a timer, on a serious timer, especially with those sacred sites now being walled in. It's going to be very difficult to just run in with 1 unit and decap it, and you see that VortiX has to transition to farms, which is never a good sign. Even though the Alchemy Chapel will affect those farmers, that's a big investment in Feudal Age, an investment that Beasty won't have to make for a long time. Because Beasty has map control, which means he's gonna have berries. Now, if you look at the bottom part of the map, there is 2 spearmen and 1 men-at-arms looping around. That army has been walking across the map for a long time, and it's about to hit the berries. I'm not sure if our observer will show that to us, but there is an attack notification going off at the south, and because Beasty is distracted right now, that's an opportunity to kill villagers. There it is, men-at-arms are now hitting the villagers out there. Only 2 men-at-arms, so not a ton of damage output in here, but if Beasty doesn't notice this, he could be in trouble. And he's not focusing over there, because he's focusing on the battle in the middle. He's got the numbers to take this fight, and he's going to take this fight, but behind this one, he's losing villagers. You can see on the villager count in the top right that it just dropped down to 35, and it has been steadily dropping ever since then. Beasty isn't focusing on the southern part of the map, and he's paying the price for that. Down to 34 is his villager count. He still hasn't noticed those villagers being slain, and that's the reason why you always use those sneaky forces in combination with the direct assault in the middle, because you want to distract your opponent. You want to make sure he doesn't notice what's going on, and you see now he's pulling off the villagers, but how many dead bodies were there? At least 3, at least 4 villagers were taken down, and at the end of the day, Beasty is still in a good position, especially if he's able to retaliate with those horsemen now coming in towards the gold mine. But you gotta wonder, if that many villagers being lost is going to have a very significant effect on the gameplay of Beasty. There's going to be 1 villager being taken down by the horsemen. They are tempted to take this fight against the spear, and indeed they will. They will lose some HP, but the spearman will be taken down. But this gives a window for the horsemen to do some additional damage over here. Another man-at-arms pops out. All 3 sacred sites now under the control of Beasty, however, and that's going to compensate substantially for the amount of villagers lost, despite the fact that Beasty doesn't have access to the berries right now. At the bottom left of the screen, you can see the sacred site countdown right now, once again courtesy of the new overlay employed during the broadcast. And that's going to allow you to see how much time we have left on the sacred site countdown. Not something that VortiX has to be worried about right now. I think the bigger problem for him is that his opponent is sitting on an insane gold income. You see 450 gold per minute. That's brutal for a feudal age economy. And part of the reason why the Delhi is so powerful in these situations is because while that gold income is not that spectacular for, let's say, Imperial Age or late game, it's very impactful in Feudal Age. So just when you need some gold income, you get a ton of gold income, and that's exactly why this is so powerful. And now you're seeing the Delhi flood arrive on the battlefield, 52 units coming in, as opposed to just 16 from VortiX, and the horsemen, archers, picking off the spears, and with that, Beasty takes the game here. Once again, the cameras are a little off-sync compared to the gameplay, so you could see Beasty take off his headset a little faster. But with that, that is going to be a win. Right in the hands of our Serbian player, Beasty. He's going to take game number 1 over here. Confident show of force, I would say. He has used his powerful civilization, the Delhi Sultanate, for this one. Ultimately, VortiX came up with a somewhat unconventional game plan, and we've talked about this one. He's definitely a guy that wants to pull some unique, some crazy strategies, but he's also a person that has some strategies that may have not been tried. Because if you look at what Beast is doing, he's playing standard meta. Every single thing that he did was tried multiple times in ranked games, probably. Whereas for VortiX, this was a mastermind game plan. He picked HRE specifically to counterpick the Delhi and allow himself to push with the man-at-arms. But once the man-at-arms push failed, it suddenly became a disaster because the Delhi was just able to overrun him. Now, on the map overlay, ignore the names because it says VortiX for everybody, but just trust me on the fact that King of the Hill and High View are the home maps selected by Beasty. And, oh boy, why do we have Dry Arabia twice? Something is wrong with the overlay. Hang on, I'll have to fix that. I am my own production crew here, so I'm not gonna have a production crew fixing that for me, but something is wrong with that overlay. Looks like VortiX actually picked Dry Arabia, according to the draft. That's a little bit of a weird approach. I don't think that you're eligible to pick Dry Arabia again. If you can, that's a massive loophole, potentially, in the favor of VortiX. Usually you cannot repick the game number 1 map. This being said, we're going to add a score here to Beastyqt. He's taking the lead in this one, and I will see you in game number 2 very shortly. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to game number 2 in this best of 5 in between Beastyqt and VortiX. This time around, it looks like we're going back to Arabia, so VortiX may have actually found a loophole in the rules, not something that you see in common Age of Empires tournaments, being able to repick game number 1's map, Arabia. Usually that's not a map that's selectable as home maps, but one has to shout out VortiX for reading the rulebook, because oftentimes, players don't necessarily read through the entire rulebook, or at least not investigate very deep into the rules. And he definitely did, because he was fully aware that he can repick Arabia here, and it wasn't a mistake on my overlay, actually. It was just him being smart and deciding to pick Arabia once again. He's going to have Mongols available for him. He is going to be utilizing the blue color up north, and to the south, we're going to have Beastyqt playing as the English in red. This is a very tough matchup for the English, probably the most difficult matchup of all, simply because the Mongols can do everything that the English can, just better. More effective economy, better ability to spam archers, the ability to add horsemen or men-at-arms a little easier, especially men-at-arms once you get to Castle Age. So you get the feel that this is going to be an extremely difficult matchup for Beasty to fight against. Now, keep in mind that technically, the English also have access to their men-at-arms in Feudal Age, in fact, even in Dark Age, but I would be very surprised to see Beasty use men-at-arms in Feudal this time, because he has seen how badly it went for VortiX in the previous game, so I'll be somewhat surprised if he ended up utilizing any here. Instead, it's likely going to be a longbow play, although you can't guarantee that. In fact, it's very possible that we're going to see some cheesy approaches. Scouting in this matchup is going to be vital for both sides because you need to know what your opponent is up to, especially the Mongol player. Beautiful town center spot to start with for VortiX. He's got the wood line and the gold mine very close to his base, and this has a serious impact on his Dark Age build. When you have the wood line and the gold mine close to your town center, you don't need to build a gur, which means that you don't need to chop that much wood in Dark Age. Especially in the current branch of the game, where you start with less wood compared to what it used to be in the release version of the game, if you need to build a gur, you won't be able to afford an ovu, or if you go for an ovu, you won't be able to afford a gur right away. Which means that if your town center is not close to wood and gold at the same time, you will have to chop a lot of wood to be able to get the gur going. By having that town center close to the gold and the wood, you save up on that, and that is going to accelerate your Feudal Age time. Now, the Khan is up front, and he's going to scout the council hall that's being built by Beasty. And on the other side, you could already see that VortiX has started dropping his own deer stones as well. His ovu is quite far, but against English, especially if the English player goes for longbows, that's not a disaster. It's risky against civilizations that can burn down your ovu very easily, but if the English player just goes for longbows, those can't really do much against that ovu out there. Now, these are the two civilizations that benefit the most from towers, so one of the interesting aspects of this game to look at will be how the players will utilize their towers. The Mongols, of course, benefiting from the extra movement speed with the M network, and the English benefiting from the network of castles bonus. Preemptive barracks coming in here for Beastie, so he's preparing for a horseman play from the Mongols, and that's something that you can expect simply because if anyone is playing against the English, then you're probably thinking about horsemen because you know that the English player will probably open longbows. Beasty's heavy on the wood department, so it's likely going to be spearman longbows. Once again, just like in game number 1, we've talked about this one, Beasty is really much a meta player. So he's definitely someone that's not going to deviate that much from the meta. There's going to be an archer range coming in. The deerstones will actually move closer to the ovu over here. Archer range will likely be finished here. As you see, Beasty is doing his best to harass those villagers out there. The Khan getting some nice free hits on those longbows, and you see the fourth villager coming out, and this is something that VortiX is aware of as well. Now, the problem that the Beastyqt could face over here is that if this archer range goes up, it's going to be rather easy for VortiX to just match the archer numbers with the double production. And this is where we have to highlight that the movement speed for the archers, even without the YAM network, is greater than the movement speed of the longbows. Which means that you can pursue fleeing longbowmen with your archers and kill them. So you have to be very careful how you take these fights here for Beasty, because one bad move and you lose your entire army, especially if the Khan pops the movement speed arrow or your opponent's archers are still affected by the YAM network. You see that this first tower that's being placed by Beasty is sort of just a placeholder, a staging ground for an assault. He's not going very aggressive with it because he knows fully well that pushing any deeper into the opponent's base would be very risky, and if that tower doesn't go up, he's in trouble. Now, I wonder if VortiX saw that tower with the Khan, because if he did, it's very possible that he's going to move in to intercept the villager, and that's exactly what we're seeing. Villager will be pulled away, and Beasty at this point yielded absolutely no gain from that fourth villager. And that tower is going to be denied for a substantial amount of time. And now, Beasty is the one that is forced to make something against those archers, and that has to be horsemen. That's the only solution he has. Man-at-arms won't work against mass archers. We discussed that in the previous game. Now the archers once again could move in. Beasty is still committed to that tower, but the numbers advantage are now on the side of VortiX. He's able to reinforce his army much easier because he's got the movement speed bonus, he's got the double training, and now, as you see, he's coming in for a pursuit. He's trying to pick off the villager. There was a speed arrow popped by the Khan as well. Volley comes out from the archers, picks off the villagers, and now the fleeing longbowmen are being picked apart by those archers. Even outside the YAM network, they do have the movement speed advantage. And VortiX knows very well that there is blood in the water. He's going to pursue and take down a couple of longbowmen and now just run away from this one. He's realizing that he's being outnumbered, so he's just going to pull off his forces. He picked off the villager. That was the most important thing out here for him. And now he's going to fall back. The deer stones is what's actually providing him that movement speed bonus right now, or in the influence. It's not even any kind of outpost or anything like that. No blacksmith upgrades for either of these players. And you see so far that preemptive barracks for Beasty didn't yield any major result. That's the danger of making a preemptive barracks. If you make it and your opponent is making no cavalry, you're sort of screwed, and it looks like that scout is very low HP. It gets away with just an inch of health remaining for Beasty. That's a crucial save. Because if that scout goes down, you either make a new one so you once again have vision, or if you don't have a new scout, then you will just be blind. Low mobility army with the longbows, no vision, that's a terrible combination for a British player or English player. So, with that, I would think that keeping that scout alive is an insanely important moment of this game. Tower once again will be attempted here by Beasty. VortiX has a Khan nearby, so I wonder if he's going to spot this attempt once again, but it looks like the Khan is all the way back, so the tower is going up actually. But I think that right now VortiX is realizing that his opponent is very far from pushing him, and this is the advantage of the Mongols. Their cost on the units is very cheap on the food and wood department as well. So not only are they able to reinforce their army very fast, they're spending limited amount of food and wood on it. In fact, even gold, but he hasn't made any gold unit right now. And that allows them to bank up a ton of resources. If you look at the resource bank for VortiX, he wants to go Castle Age. He's realizing that his opponent is nowhere close to pushing him. And now you're seeing some horsemen being made, and I think that couple of blue dots that are being sent around on the left side, you can see it on the minimap, those are actually horsemen ready to counterattack. That could be a great move, even just to intercept the reinforcements. Another tower is being pushed up here for Beasty. Now he's crawling closer and closer, longbows getting close. VortiX is, for now, keeping his archers back at home. Horsemen are being added now by Beastyqt as well, but of course the extra movement speed of the archers makes it a little easier for the Mongols to keep those archers alive, and I think those blue dots have just arrived to the base of Beasty. This is the moment to strike. I still don't know what exactly those are. Now with horsemen on the battlefield, you have the opportunity to potentially burn down the ovu here. VortiX, it looks like he's not going Castle Age just yet, and it looks like we'll have no vision on those blue dots hitting the base of Beasty. Villager counts are still identical, so whatever they are, they haven't killed a single villager so far, or at least It's very unlikely that they did. Archer range will be pulled, but the moment you move that building, you lose all the armor on it, and you see that those horsemen and the longbows are actually doing a ton of damage on it, but it looks like VortiX will be able to save the archer range, a crucial save out there, because losing that archer range would have been an absolute disaster. It looks like he's now playing double stables. He's hiding all the horsemen. Beasty has absolutely no idea, and patience could pay off here so well for VortiX, because it's all about that patience. Waiting until you have the critical mass of horsemen. Not a single spearman is mixed into that army for Beasty. So 5, 6, 7 horsemen, especially with the defense upgrade, they could just massacre all those archers. And it looks like we're gonna have arrow slits being built on that tower. The horsemen are now shown. Some of the longbows will jump into that tower, but now you see it's a flea. It's just a flea here from Beasty. His horsemen will also jump on the archers over here. He's got the help of the tower, and it looks like the longbows will get to the safety in the other tower, but yeah, now you can think about burning down this forward tower and intercepting all those longbows inside, and that's exactly what VortiX is thinking about. Clean up the cavalry and then burn down the towers. Now, that tower has arrow slits on it, so you gotta be very careful. In fact, you might even want to retreat here if you're VortiX, because this might be an overextension. That tower is very risky to take down right now. 5 longbows inside with arrow slits, that's a ton of damage output on that tower, and you see quite a lot of those horsemen are being taken down here. I guess VortiX is satisfied with the fact as long as he can burn down this tower and kill the longbows inside. But reinforcements are coming in here for Beasty, and I really feel like this could be an overextension here by VortiX. He's ready to take this tower down, though he's gonna get some resources for doing so. But as you see, those longbows are staying alive for a long time, allowing Beasty to bring in some reinforcements. Finally, they will be cleaned up. Both sides losing significant numbers over here. VortiX at 14 army, still 18 is the count for our red player, Beasty, and he's going to snipe the Khan as well. I think that this was an overextension here from VortiX, and because he's still not up to Castle Age, he's not going to be able to get some Lancers going, and while he was focusing on that fight, there's a tower being dropped at the back of his wood line as well, meaning that now there is another forward position that can assault him, potentially cut him off from wood, and his access to that Ovu as well could be cut off. That would be the next move for Beasty. Burn down the Ovu, make sure that your opponent isn't able to get any stone. So even if he gets up to Castle Age somehow, even if he gets another Ovu placed at a stone mine, there are 2 stone mines at the back for VortiX, he isn't going to have a ton of stone to work with, and won't be able to make Castle Age units. Now this is looking great for Beasty. He's burning down the Ovu, and he's very close to potentially pushing those lumberjacks. Another force of cavalry is going to be massed here by VortiX, and he is finishing up with the range defense upgrade and the melee attack upgrade. You can see that below his name on those indicators with the technologies. You're gonna have the horsemen and now the archers or longbows looping around, and suddenly no access to wood over here for VortiX. Everything that he makes, the archers, the horsemen, these are wood heavy units, and he decided to send all of his horsemen to launch a counterattack. You can see the blue dots on the minimap going south, but this could be risky because this also means that he could potentially sacrifice some of his units back at home. Now, the forward villager might have spotted those horsemen coming in because there's a new forward villager moving forward for Beasty, and the appropriate defense for Beasty would just be to make 3 or 4 spearmen. There is not a single archer to escort those horsemen, so 2 or 3 spears would actually work really effectively here. Looks like Beasty is gonna have to jump back into the safety of the town center. Quite a lot of damage is being done by those horsemen out there, but not a single villager killed so far. The first one just now going down. English town center shooting 2 arrows by default also helps tremendously over here, holding off those horsemen. And you see the firepower of that English town center is actually showing over here. Those horsemen are getting massacred. And I think they killed less than 2 villagers, actually. Not a single villager dying from those farmers. Look at all those dead horses. It is an absolute slaughter. This wasn't even a battle, that was a slaughter. And you see now the new Ovu is under attack. Horsemen once again in the battlefield for VortiX here. He's trying to take a good fight against those longbows, but there is enough horsemen here for Beasty to take a rather reasonable engagement. Even if not perfect, he's going to take a rather decent fight over here. And for VortiX, it's getting worrisome that he has lost wave after wave of cavalry units over here. Now the longbows are retreating to the tower. You see that the horsemen of Beasty are being used to block the movement of VortiX's horsemen, and now you see a tower being dropped. Look at that tower spot. That's going to deny 2 gold mines, and it's going to be an absolute pain to clean up. Beasty now adding a ton of farming eco for himself. He's looking really strong in this game with the English, and he's already at a 1-0 advantage. So if he takes game number 2 over here, VortiX will be at a very difficult position. The tower goes up, and arrow slits will soon come in here for that tower as well. Indeed, there goes the arrow slits upgrade. This is something that will be taken down potentially here by VortiX. He's sending all the horsemen that way. I wonder if Beast is going to try to save that tower, and there is the step right up coming in. So VortiX finally getting to Castle Age over here. Tower still not with the arrow slits upgrade. You only have a villager garrisoned inside. And it looks like Beast's forces are converging upon that location from the south. So Beast is going to try and save that tower out there, sacrificing the villager for some extra repairs and to buy time for the arrow slits upgrade, which just now finishes. And now he's going to try and poke and probe with those horsemen as long as possible. Now it's only horsemen from VortiX, excuse me. Which means that Beastyqt could start adding spears if he wants to, but he needs to make something happen. Because VortiX is going to be up to Castle Age soon. He's got a lot of pasture, so his food eco is fine, his gold eco is going to be fine, and soon Lancers could hit the field. And VortiX still has stone income from the Ovu on the north, and he can move those stables close to the Ovu. Khan overextending a tiny bit, Horseman trying to take it down, but it will retreat in an orderly fashion. And now you are going to see double Lancer production from one of the stables, the other one is only single Lancers. Not a ton of stone for VortiX, but those first couple of Lancers will be immensely impactful. And now, you're seeing the Horseman launch and counterattack, and for Beasty, if he's not going up, he's in trouble. Horseman will open up against his villagers. That's going to be some casualties now. Even the town center won't save all of those villagers. Some spearmen will join the battle, and those will help substantially, especially supported by the town center fire. But as I said, once the knights hit the field, suddenly things will get a lot more worrisome for our red player Beasty. And you see, his resource bank is nowhere close to aging up to Castle Age. So if he's not on the way right now, he's going to be stuck in feudal for an extended amount of time. And now you're seeing some barracks being added as well. You are seeing VortiX realizing that against spears and longbows, his best response is going to be men-at-arms, so we're going to see some of those appear on the battlefield. Now, VortiX also has an eco lead, thanks to the fact that he's utilizing the step redoubt for his gold mining operations. And we will have a prayer tent being dropped. You will likely see VortiX roaming across the map with the prayer tent and picking up the relics, which is something that you can do. It's very cheesy. You can basically move the prayer tent close to a relic, pick up the relic, garrison it into the prayer tent, and then if you pick up the prayer tent, you can move the relic with it. So you can collect all 5 relics really fast over here. Here comes the first Lancer charge. There is quite a lot of spearmen over here to take this fight, however, and you gotta be careful with your Khan as well. The Khan is absorbing a lot of damage from the longbows. Looks like Khan is gonna get pulled back just in time here. Khan survives, helping out a lot against those spears. A Castle Age Khan has a lot more damage output than a Feudal Age Khan, which means that it's a lot more helpful against those spears than what VortiX used to have in Feudal. For now, Beast is piling up resources, however, and he is still in a reasonable position at this point. The concern for him will be that his opponent is going to have 5 relics, most likely. 800 food per minute right now for Beasty as his income, but his gold income is somewhat worrisome, and if you look at his alternative gold spots, those are not spectacular either. You can see on the minimap that he's gonna have to fight for gold. If he can get up to Castle Age with the King's Palace potentially and place it on one of the gold mines, he's going to be fine for a time being. And there's the prayer tent. You should soon see an attempt from him to pick up all the relics. And is there one random horseman burning down the Ovu? You got to be careful here for VortiX. You don't want to just lose that Ovu randomly to a single horseman. Next wave of Lancers now moving in, and you're seeing improved siege engineering come in as an upgrade for VortiX. Not only is he going to make men-at-arms, he's also going to use them to make mangonels on the battlefield, potentially even battering rams. And at this point, the Ovu is still being burned down by that one scout. VortiX never noticed this. It's still very far away from being taken down, but it would be an absolute blunder to lose an Ovu to just one scout in Castle Age. Nice two-pronged attack over here by VortiX. He's distracting his opponent on the front with some forces, and now the Lancers are coming in from behind. King's Palace being scrambled up here by what seems to be 20-plus villagers by a red player. He needs to get up to Castle Age, but can he get up to Castle Age? Those Lancers have a tremendous amount of damage output, and getting your Castle Age denied like that, getting your eco slain like that could be your way out of this game. Beast is suddenly lost like 15-20 villagers. Look at all the dead bodies around that town center, and now you're seeing on the front a push coordinated together with the push from the back. Villagers on the gold mine getting slain, villagers on that King's Palace getting slain, and suddenly you're talking about a 23 villagers lead for your blue player out here, plus the step redoubt. This is looking extremely strong for VortiX, and now he's in a commanding position. Beast isn't able to get to Castle Age, or at least not in the next 1 or 2 minutes, because you see he has to pull everything he has to try and get that King's Palace up. But he's sacrificing dozens of villagers doing so. The Khan gets killed on the battlefield in front of the base here for Beasty. And while this town center is going to help securing the farming eco, there's going to be no gold income accessible for Beasty. His gold mines are all exposed and now the man-at-arms are hitting the field, not something that Beasty has any kind of answer to, as the Lancers will clean up so many villagers, 23 villagers remaining here for Beasty. I don't think there is a way to recover here. I think that he's just out, and indeed, Beasty taps out. VortiX, convincing game number 2, started out very good for Beasty with that longbowman aggression, but ultimately, it resulted in a victory for VortiX. If I had to highlight one key moment, I think it was the battle close to that Northern Ovu, where most of the longbowmen went down from Beasty, and then after that, it just came down to the Mongols having a lot more efficient economy over here than the English. As I said before this set, I think the Mongols are basically just like the English. They can do everything that the English can, just slightly better, and that's exactly what we have seen over here. VortiX evens things out over here, so now we can add the wins on the maps as well. And if we look at the civilizations, it is going to be English, gone for Beasty, Holy Roman Empire, gone as well for VortiX already, and Delhi is gone for Beasty. So we are now good, I believe, with the civilization selections. And now we can take a look at the first home map of Beastyqt, which could be high view and open map, like we have seen on the 2 Arabia games, or King of the Hill, potentially. If we get to VortiX's next home map, that would be Hill and Dale. So I'm curious to see what he has on his mind, because he used up his HRE, so he has something else on his mind. As you can see on the screen, Beasty has banned Delhi from the opponent, and VortiX has banned Mongols from his opponent. So the bans are only for the opponent. Each player bans 1 civilization away from the opponent, and the 7 other civilizations are available in this best of 5. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to game number 3 in this best of 5 between VortiX and Beastyqt. We are heading into King of the Hill. This is going to be the first home map of Beastyqt. Spawning in on the right side is going to be Beasty playing as the French in red, and on the left side you're going to have VortiX playing as the blue Abbasid dynasty. And just like in the previous game where I said that the Mongols are a very good response to the English, I do feel like Abbasid is a spectacular response to the French. We have seen this multiple times, especially in the new meta, where Spearman, Horseman, especially combined with the second Town Center Boom, is a great way to fight French. The French have a very expensive army with the Knights, and you can sort of force engagements to a certain extent with the Spears and Horsemen, and it's very difficult for the French to take a good fight against that. In the last 1 or 2 months, actually less than that, like 1 month or so, we have seen the emergence of Abbasids for 2 reasons. First of all, their berry gathering rate was buffed, just like the Delhi, but the most important thing here is that the Spearman and Horseman unit composition is slowly prevailing over the Knights Archers. And the French civilization is just a civilization that's sort of stuck with that Knights and Archer composition. It is the civilization that changed the least when it comes to playstyle compared to the release version of the game. Ever since the release, players were playing with Knights and Archers, whereas Abbasids sort of went through multiple changes over the course of the development. Now it takes less time for them to go up to the next stage, and it actually is now a very effective civilization at countering cavalry-focused civilizations, especially the French. So I would think that VortiX counterpick Beasty here, and to a certain extent, you can expect the French on this map, because French is in general very powerful on this map, especially if the game goes very long. The red palace being placed in the middle is extremely difficult to get rid of. So like, oftentimes you're seeing players pick the English and the French on this one, just because they are generally powerful civilizations, but if you have to fight for the middle in late game, then either the Berkshire Palace or the Red Palace, for the English and the French respectively, are able to hold that central position so well that your opponent has a really difficult time pushing that only sacred side. Looking at the relic distribution, that's going to be rather even. 1 on the top of the hill, 2 on the south, 2 on the north, as we do have 1 rather close hunt to the players and 1 that's kind of far away. If you look at the minimap, down south, at the southern corner of the map, there is the second hunt belonging to VortiX, and to the north, there is the second hunt belonging to Beasty. Feudal Age on the way here for VortiX already with the economy wing, as you would expect from an Abbasid player. No stone being mined so far by our Abbasid player, however. And that's basically your first benchmark to a certain extent with the Abbasids. When are you mining stone, if you're mining stone at all? If you're not mining stone, the question is, what are you gonna do? Because you will have a decent amount of food to spend. You have the berries to work with, you have discount on your villagers once you get your fresh foodstuffs technology, so you can still put up a decent amount of feudal age aggression, but usually the Abbasid dynasty is being played with 2 town centers, so you gotta wonder if VortiX is going to play 1 TC over here. He's on the berries, and I would suspect that he's just gonna go 1 TC for the time being, because if he wanted to go for a second town center, he would probably already consider sending villagers over to stone. And you see, it's a little difficult to see on the minimap, and for tomorrow I will actually get some highlighters so you can see what I'm talking about, because, as I said before, I'm not the one controlling the camera. That red scout for Beasty was lurking around that stone mine to the north of VortiX's base. So Beasty also wants to know if his opponent is going for stone, and the answer is that we are going to have some stone mined here over here by VortiX, but this is a very risky approach. The thing is that if you are playing this double town center build, you have to be sure that you can get enough stone for a second TC. And in particular against the French, you have to start mining stone early, especially if your stone mine is exposed. Because if you don't have enough stone by the time the first couple of knights and archers arrive, you're in trouble. And you see, there is going to be a barracks as a reaction here for VortiX, but if we are seeing just an archer range being dropped by Beasty having knights and archers, he can deny that stone mine from VortiX before VortiX is able to gather the stone he needs for a second TC. Now, luckily for VortiX, Beasty is going for a blacksmith instead of an archer range. This means that the knights will have 1 extra attack because the French get the knights, or well, in general, the melee attack upgrades in each age for free. But it also means that there is no archers to deal with the spearmen, so 1 or 2 spears can protect that stone mine. It's actually pretty lucky for VortiX that his opponent is not going for archers, because if archers were part of the equation, it would be very difficult for VortiX to hold that stone mine. First knight appearing on the battlefield as we speak. Looks like it's not going to hit the stone mine. Instead, it's going for the lumberjacks. And actually, that knight is going for the stone mine on the north first. So I'm not even sure if Beasty was aware of the other stone mine to the south, because it really seemed like he wanted to send a knight over to see if there is any stone being mined, but he didn't really target the stone mine on the south. Now the knight is going to see the stone being mined, but there is already 2 spearmen mixed in between the villagers hiding there, although they are quite well visible thanks to their spears, and those spears will be able to discourage that knight from charging in. So you see now, Beasty is aware of the fact that his opponent is going to spearman defense into double town centers. Very defensive gameplay over here from VortiX, and you gotta wonder what exactly the game plan is now for Beasty. Because how is he going to break this? He can't just take down those spears easily. There is going to be the second town center probably being placed on the hunt. That's actually something that you commonly see from players placing their second TC on a food source, but it looks like it's actually gonna be turned around, and instead will be placed right next to the starting TC. Now you could ask, why place those 2 TCs so close to each other? And the answer is, because you want to make sure they can reinforce each other. You want to make sure that you can garrison a lot of your villagers in case you get pushed, and it makes it much more difficult for your opponent to commit underneath the town center, because you have 2 town centers worth of firepower instead of just 1. There's the archer range coming in for Beasty, but I'm not exactly sure what he's going to be able to accomplish with knights and archers right now, because his opponent was already given time to mine the stone, and now you could see VortiX adding his own archers as well to pick off the opponent's archers, or horsemen to deal with them. I feel like the window might already be closing here for Beasty, because he so far hasn't been able to get anything out of those knights. That's the first successful charge that he has had, but he isn't able to pick off the villager just yet. He's dancing around with 2 knights, however, and the spearmen slightly mispositioned on the right side will adjust themselves. There is enough spears over here for VortiX to deal with all that knight aggression. Looks like professional scouts is gonna be the answer here from Beasty. Gotta love that. If your opponent is playing very defensive, might as well send in your own scouts and pick up the carcasses. I hope that the game sound is alright, by the way, because I'm monitoring the situation on my OBS screen, and it seems a little low, but I didn't adjust anything, so I have no idea if the production crew is adjusting anything. That's one of the things I have to mention. As I said, I'm receiving a clean feed which means that everything, the images that you see, the sounds that you hear from the game, those are all adjusted by the production crew in Berlin. Looks like the villager once again will survive thanks to the valiant effort of those spears. So still, Beasty wasn't able to kill a single villager out there. So I'm certainly hoping that the sound is alright. If not, please let me know and I will try to get something worked out for tomorrow. But it's a little difficult to keep track of things, especially because they can just adjust anything any moment. Looks like VortiX is planning to wall himself off on the right side because there is another patch of berries that he could utilize up north. Two knights are coming in from the south, and there is the horseman play. Knights diving underneath the town center. There is not a single villager picked off once again. So VortiX still pretty fine with his villager count now with 2 town centers. Of course, the French have slightly faster training speed on their villagers, so they won't fall behind that easily in the villager count, but ultimately Beasty is going to have a lower villager count than his opponent will. On the left side, that knight is probably getting cleaned up by the spears, and now you're seeing that force being assembled. That's the dangerous force of the Abbasids. That mass melee, the guys with the lances and the spears, that is a dangerous force out there. Now, that knight is still lurking around, so you gotta be careful here, because that could do a ton of damage to that many villagers out there. Archers now appearing on the battlefield, and you see that VortiX had to adjust his lumberjacks to the north. First villager casualty of the game, now on the side of VortiX, that knight finally getting something for its investment. And now you see some red dots appearing in front of base of VortiX here, so looks like Beasty is ready to make a push. He's got the range defense upgrade, he's got the melee attack upgrade, but the range defense will be completely useless here. Look at that, the spear's trying to cut off the escape path of that one knight that's trying to regroup with the others. New knights now moving in, villagers will probably jump into the town center. Nope. Not a single villager jumping into the TC. That was a bit of a mismanagement over there by our blue player VortiX. Lost one villager to the knight charge. He's currently even in terms of villager count compared to the opponent, and now you see those Vos on the right side paying off because the opponent's archers aren't able to loop around. Beasty tried to loop around and hit those berry villagers on the north with the archers, but these Vos are immensely helpful at keeping him out, and so far, Beasty wasn't able to do any damage to the opponent. Now, I think he has the right idea. He wants to go castle over here, but now the Abbasid power is showing because remember that the amount of food spent for VortiX here isn't spectacular. He has banged up a lot of food, and he's able to turn that into horsemen and spears because he's got the discount on the villagers, which means that not only is he booming on 2 town centers, despite the fact that he currently has no extra villager advantage over the opponent, basically, it's 44 versus 43 as you see at the top of the screen, he still is able to carve out a military advantage simply because he's able to afford a lot of army, considering the fact that he's spending minimal amount of resources on those villagers. There is the castle age coming in for Beastyqt. He's rushing it up with what seems to be more than 10 villagers, probably around 12 to 13. He knows that he needs castle age really fast. Keep in mind that he's going to fall behind in terms of villager count eventually, and his army is very expensive, so he spent a ton of resources in feudal age making army. He needs to keep that army alive, upgrade them to castle age units to have a chance at fighting this. Whereas for VortiX, he's floating a ton of food, but he's very low on the gold department. So this is going to be an interesting scenario for him, because he's got his window to push this one right now, but he's not fully committed to it. If this push fails, he can still go to Castle Age, but it looks like he's committed to this one right now. He's sending over the battering ram, he's going for the archer ranges. Horsemen trying to envelope those archers out here. Archers will retreat to the safety of the town center, the battering ram, knocking on that first archer range already, and it looks like this is a full commitment here by VortiX. He doesn't care. He just wants to overrun the opponent with the spearman and the horseman. Minimal micro is needed over here for the blue player. You just flood that infantry and the cavalry out there. The spearmen are able to get some very nice hits on those knights, and the knights don't want to fight before the castle age upgrades come in. But do they have a choice is the question. Because you see, villagers are being pulled right now. The archers all have been slain. The town center is full of villagers. Not a single archer on the battlefield. The first archer range already went down as well. And there is so many spearmen still on the battlefield. Horsemen still out there, and the knights are doing their best to repel this attack. But how do you deal with so many spears, especially when those horsemen can just jump on those gold miners? The villager count is collapsing here for Beasty. He's slowly cleaning this one up, but the losses that he's taking is just way too much to overcome. This is a very difficult scenario for him. You see that VortiX is now focusing down the houses, trying to get his opponent housed, but I think the damage has already been done. VortiX is down to 11 army, and as I said, this wasn't the full commitment. He's still on the way to Castle Age behind this one, killed so many villagers on the gold mine as well. By the time Beastyqt cleans this up, his opponent is going to be in Castle, and so many villagers are low HP there as well. So there is a window for VortiX to finish off a couple more with those leftover horsemen. VortiX is down to 11 army, but the results of this attack are unquestionable. 42 villagers for Beasty, 59 for VortiX. And as I said, VortiX is on the way to Castle Age. Looks like he's adding some more barracks, so he's seeing that his opponent is mostly going knights. The archers have been wiped out. One archer range is gone as well. So his opponent doesn't have a spectacular archer production. This could be mass spearmen from him. Simply because his opponent currently doesn't have an answer to those spears. 2 more barracks have been dropped. Culture wing halfway done for our blue player out here. There is still a window for Beasty to potentially try and do some damage, but it's going to be very difficult. Because VortiX realized that there is a chance for a counterattack, so he's just going to wall himself up. He's walled in his base with safe resources all around, now having an 18 villagers lead. Horsemen now moving in for a counterattack over here, and that's going to be, once again, just some idle time forced on those villagers, but those 2 horsemen are, once again, just forcing Beasty to send some forces back at home, clean them up, and this is giving a larger and larger window for VortiX to get to Castle Age, get to those Castle Age units that he wants, the Lancers, the veteran spearmen. I think he already has phalanx on his spears, if I had to bet on that. He can also grab the Castle Age upgrades, of course. Speaking of upgrades, that's not something that VortiX has a lot of. If you look at Beasty's eco, he's got Wheelbarrow, he's got most of the blacksmith upgrades, whereas not a single blacksmith upgrade is finished for VortiX. He's gonna have the spearmen moving out though. Soon, Beast is gonna have to add something against those spears. That could be mangonels, potentially that could be archers once again. But those horsemen are just being an absolute pain in the rear, because they have been just doing so much damage on those villagers. Not in terms of killing, but in terms of idle time. And it is just hurting Beasty left and right. Beast is at 48 villagers, his opponent is at 68. And that villager discrepancy will just grow in the favor of VortiX even more. Knights in low numbers in the middle right now. For Beasty, he's got a ton of food and gold in the bank, but I'm not exactly sure what he's going to do with that. Now, this is the moment where VortiX's push is going to slow down a tiny bit because he's running out of food, so he's going to have to invest into farms. Looks like he found a villager to the south, might be able to pick it off, but it looks like the knights and archers come in here for the save. Military numbers, rather comparable, and I wonder, was that a chop through? There's a villager out there for Beasty, and he may have chopped through that wood line. If he's smart, he's going to send the knights over there and sneak all of those into the opponent's eco. What a play! What a play! Observer! No! Observer! Please! Show the knights, thank you! Oh, what a play! That's an absolute 200 IQ play here from Beasty. It's very difficult to spot something like that. The villager chopping through the trees. And with that, the knights are in. And I love how Beasty waited for the knights to arrive. He didn't send in 1 knight, he sent in 5, 6, 7. Because the moment you show that you've chopped through, your opponent has a window to react. But now you have 6 knights in, and those can maximize the damage output over here. Not a ton of villagers were killed, although Beasty was definitely able to cut into that villager discrepancy. But the most important thing is that now you're forcing our blue player to defend, and look at that on the front. VortiX might have become a little overconfident over here going for those berries. He wasn't expecting those knights to appear on the battlefield, and now VortiX is starving. He's out of food. His newly built farming eco was just nullified by those knights raiding it, and the berries on the front are also being cut off. So VortiX is having a very difficult time accessing food right now, and that's going to make things very difficult when it comes to grabbing upgrades, when it comes to increasing his army count, and Beasty might actually have a larger window than I expected. He still has his chance to run through and just disengage with those knights, and it looks like he's going to intercept the villager that was sent to build those walls once again. That's extremely important. You want to keep that window open as long as possible. Give yourself an opportunity to escape, and that's exactly what he's doing. VortiX is likely going to rebuild that wall, but one thing that this gave for Beasty was a bit of a window, because this is going to delay VortiX's farm transition, and now he's fully reliant on these berries up front, and now you see the knights moving in here. Quite a lot of army on the battlefield though for our blue player VortiX. Mangonel, however, getting taken down by the knights over here. Looks like the spearmen were just not there in large enough numbers to kill the knights fast enough before the Mangonel goes down to the knights. That's a big loss over there. capital loss for VortiX, because now those crossbows will be a very effective complement. In fact, those are arbalètriers for the French, which means that they would also have quite a lot of melee armor if they get the Gambeson's unique upgrade. And that would give them quite long survival rate against those spears even, not only the men-at-arms. Now the villagers are once again being pulled, and you see VortiX's food count is disturbingly low, whereas on the other side for Beasty, he still has map control, so he's able to access quite a lot of sources of food. He was ferrying in deer for a long time, he still has berries to work with, and now you're seeing Beasty crawl up, and we're getting closer and closer to that late Imperial stage of the game. Because as things stand, this game could go long, and if it goes long, and the French can get the Red Palace in the middle, that could be huge. Because that's going to be insanely difficult for the Abbasids to push. Knights will try to burn their way through those walls out there. You could have tried a chop trick again, but it looks like that's not something that Beast is going to go for. Quite a lot of villagers are on the south here for VortiX. That's not something that was scouted by Beasty. And it looks like the Spearmen will be adjusted. I think this is intentional by Beasty. He knows fully well that the Spearmen will be sent there. He's just trying to lure the spears there. And the moment the spears arrive, he's going to disengage because he wants to drop a castle in the middle. Very smart play once again from Beasty. He realized that he can pull the spears to the other side by attacking that wall, and that's going to give him a guaranteed window to make a keep in the middle, and in fact deny one from the opponent. And the moment you get that foothold in the middle, it's going to be very difficult for your opponent to push that. Once again, a super clever play by Beasty. He's able to diagnose that his opponent will react to that knight's aggression on the north with the spears. And by sending the spears over there, Beasty has a guaranteed window to get a castle up in the middle. That was a very clever move from Beasty. He's still behind by 18 villagers, but he's picking up relics. He already has 3 in the bank. And I think he already picked up the 4th one. No, he didn't. There is 2 more relics still available on the map. So 3 relics right now, and look at that. Same thing once again. The very same thing is going to be done again. He's going to try to burn through those walls, force the opponent to make a reaction. Now, the mangonels will be sent as a reaction for the time being, and villagers are also being pulled to repair this one, so this time around it won't work. But now Beasty wanted to lure away the enemies so he can cap the sacred site in the middle, the only sacred site which would start the sacred site countdown. In the middle, you have the spearmen pushing up. One keep was cancelled by our blue player over here, VortiX. He's dropping it closer to the middle. This is gonna be a fight for the game, potentially, because you gotta make this keep here. If you are VortiX, and he's gonna have to cancel that. He's getting forced away from the berries. He took quite a lot of losses, and now Beasty has the middle, and you know what else Beasty has? 800 stone in the bank. That's going to be a keep being placed at the original position of VortiX's keep. He has to drop it over there, so he surrounds the sacred site from 2 directions. Boiling oil coming in right now, and it looks like stone walls. That's not allowed in this tournament. That's not allowed in this tournament. That's actually a mistake. That's a serious mistake from Beasty. To clarify, the admins of the tournament decided that stone walls and stone towers are actually not allowed. So that's actually a crucial mistake. Obviously, Beasty might have also read the rulebook, and he's just forgetting it in the heat of the battle. Keep in mind, there's a lot of things happening. So, players really sometimes just forget about these changes because their reactions come in split seconds, and these are natural reactions. But if this was a keep instead of stone walls, this would be great. He's trying to wall out the opponents here, rushing up those wall foundations. Spearmen flooding into the south. He's gonna get it. He's gonna get it. Now, I'm not exactly sure what happens if he wins this game after building stone walls. I'm honestly unsure, but this is one of those scenarios where I just say I'm happy that I'm not the admin of this tournament. Stone walls coming up on the southern part as well. I will double check the rulebook for stone walls, but I'm like 95% sure that you are not allowed to use stone walls. I will... Herbal medicine forbidden for Delhi. Oh, no stone walls in feudal. And no stone wall towers ever. Okay, never mind then. I was the one misinformed. So, in feudal age, stone walls are not allowed. In castle age, they're fine. So, Beasty hasn't broken the rule. Stone wall towers, however, are permanently banned. So, he cannot make a tower on these walls. He can make the walls right now, but not the towers. He's rushing up those walls. He's realizing that his opponent is pushing for his base. 8 minutes left on the countdown. So, still a lot of time for VortiX to reclaim the middle, but I feel like he might actually be making a mistake trying to push this side. Because if he isn't able to push through these stone walls, which is a likely possibility, then what happens after? Oh, he's breaking through. There's a wall section that's rather weak. Mangonels are opening up. Mangonels have to focus down the villagers. because the Mangonels can arc over the walls with their fire, and that's exactly what they're doing. They're taking down the villagers behind the walls, allowing the rest of the units to try and take down those weakened wall sections out there. This is sort of turning into a last hurrah here for VortiX though, because in the middle, now his opponent is standing strong. There is going to be another keep that Beastyqt can afford. He's got enough stone for a second keep right now. Or some additional stone walls behind this one. But as I said, it's getting closer and closer to the last hurrah, because if this push fails, you will be left with like 4 minutes left on the clock and your opponent having the middle. It's the only sacred site on the map. But that's going to be 4 battering rams coming in here for VortiX, and he's targeting the starting base of the opponent. This could be a crucial push here, and 3 rams is quite a lot. On the other side, you're seeing Arbaletria, you're seeing Knights, and it looks like the middle is going to be fortified by Beastyqt. Beastyqt now facing a ram push towards his starting base though, with no defense over there. Now, you gotta be very careful here if you are VortiX, because you could easily get surrounded here. So far, Knights are not moving, and there is a limited amount of reactions here from Beastyqt coming in with another layer of stone walls. He's known for his stone walls. Beastyqt is the type of trench warfare player that we have seen a lot of times in ranked games as well. He is the one that utilizes stone walls the most amongst all pros, and you're seeing an example of that right now. He's trying to slow down the opponent as much as possible, and this is going to be a potential overextension even. Because one thing that you have to consider is that if these stone walls go up and they're powerful, you could come from behind and hit these bad boys from behind. And that could be terrible. Now, some of those stone walls were rather weak, and you see they will be broken through rather easily, so suddenly Beastyqt has to scramble for a defensive castle. Once again, escape path will be very difficult to access for VortiX. So if he needs to retreat for whatever reason, he's gonna be in trouble. In fact, it would be a genius move from Beastyqt to send one of the villagers from the middle behind this army and wall it off, so that there is no chance to retreat. Here come the Springles. Mangonels are ready to set up on the villagers, however. First volley is coming out. It's going to wipe out at least 5 villagers, but the burning oil coming out of the castle over here. Plus, of course, the Springles as well, opening up from both directions. They will trade blows against each other. Knights getting massacred by the spears, boiling oil. The second volley comes out on the spears, and that boiling oil decimated the armies of VortiX quite heavily over here. Castle also being very effective against the Springolds. Multiple Springolds were taken down by that keep, and so far, VortiX isn't able to push this one, and you see that he's calling off his forces for the time being. If you revolt this one, then it's going to be difficult for VortiX to bring in new reinforcements. 5 minutes left on the timer. I feel like VortiX's window to push the middle may have closed, and he's gonna have to win this game by pushing the starting base of the opponent, but boy oh boy is that going to be difficult. He's running low on Springolds, so he's gonna have to build a couple more of those. Up north, there is absolutely no aggression coming up right now. 131 population against 177 though, 65 army against 90. That's a lot of units on the battlefield here for VortiX, although not all of them are actually on the battlefield. Some of them are coming in as reinforcements, and you gotta wonder if those walls have been rebuilt. Another keep being built as we speak over here. Looks like it's going to be an attempt from VortiX to stop that. Arbaletria now opening up Mangonels, also helping against the Rams, and the Knights will jump on the Rams. They were undefended. All of the Rams will be taken down. That's an absolute disaster over here, because with that, the castles will stand strong, using the boiling oil, using the arrow fire. They will repel all this aggression, and now you see it's a full-on retreat. The only way to go, it seems like, for VortiX is through the middle, and he's gonna be cut off by another castle there, potentially. That's an absolute disaster. 4 minutes left to go, and there is just nowhere to go right now for VortiX. He's trapped in here. We haven't seen that wall being rebuilt, but I'm fairly certain it is rebuilt, because otherwise VortiX wouldn't be pulling off this way. He's completely cornered, and this could be his demise, because there's only 4 minutes left on the clock. No siege weapons left, which means now the Arbaletria can start massacring the men-at-arms, and you see, there seems to be nowhere to go. Once again, are those walls rebuilt? That's the question. Or is he just too motivated to push this one? He's realizing that his only chance is to push this, and it seems to be the case. He's pulling off his men-at-arms through that hole out there. And there is still an escape path. Looks like he's going to call off his forces. So he just wanted to commit to that push entirely against the opponent's base. Now switching his focus towards the middle. Beastyqt knows very well that this is going to come down to holding that central position. He's got stone for another keep over here, and dropping a third keep in the middle would make it very difficult for those spears and man-at-arms to push this one. 4 rams will be built. This is gonna be the last hurrah for VortiX. He doesn't have time to build up another force. If this army gets cleaned up and he doesn't neutralize the sacred site, he doesn't have time to build up another push here. He's got 76 army against 70 though. You gotta wonder if that's enough to escort 4 battering rams to the heavens, because I don't feel like it is. especially considering that many of those man-at-arms and spears are heavily damaged from the previous engagements. I don't think those battering rams will be enough. I think he's sending in the rams into the... Could he send it in to the sacred side to just decap it? That could be an idea, and that's exactly what he's doing. He's trying to decap the sacred side over here, but without escort, those rams will just die. And you see that the stone wall in the middle still stands, so reinforcements have to take the long path around here for VortiX. If you look at the bottom of the minimap, that's the path that the reinforcements from VortiX have to walk. And you see right now, he's trying to contest the sacred side. This is the moment where he's decapping it, and the battering ram is the key unit here. But here come the Springolds, a little bit mismanaged, however, by Beasty, but it looks like it's just going to be a tap-out. I'm a little shocked that this is such an early tap-out. Maybe he didn't expect his opponent to have this much army, but I thought that he would at least wait for the end of that battle. It seems like he didn't, and with that, Beasty is going to take game number 3 over here. Very convincing hold over the middle, and this is one of the reasons why I said that French is a very popular civilization pick on this map. We haven't seen the Red Palace being utilized, but imagine one of those castles in the middle being the Red Palace. And the key thing, the entire heart and soul of Beasty's recovery in this game was the ability to raid the food eco of the opponent. He chopped through, sent in the knights, distracted the opponent. And after that, the move to just harass that wall. He knew very well that by attacking that wall, he's going to force the opponent to bring the spears up. And by bringing the spears up, he opens himself a window to place a castle in the middle that's going to protect the sacred side. And that was the entire concept here for Beasty, and from that point on, he was playing from an advantageous position because he's always going to be the defender, and he defended very effectively, yielding him another victory here, and suddenly we're looking at a 2-1 scoreline, match point for Beastyqt. He's going to have the French taken away, and on the other side, the Abbasids will be gone for VortiX. And now we're going to the first home map, actually the second home map, for VortiX. That's going to be Hillandale. He has used up his Holy Roman Empire as well. He still has Chinese and French, which are the two most common choices for Hillandale if you don't have HRE. But I think VortiX will play English. I think VortiX played English on Hillandale before in the qualifiers. But that was, I think, against Delhi. He tried to sort of just limit the opponent's map control with the longbows. Or it might have been against HRE, actually. And when he did that, it was very effective. The idea was that by having a very strong feudal age presence, he's able to limit the opponent's map control. So if Beasty chooses the meta pick here, which is HRE, he could be in trouble against a potential English pick. We'll have to see how that unfolds in the next game, game number 4. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to game number 4 in this best of 5 between Beastyqt and VortiX. This is going to be the second home map of VortiX. Spawning in on the right side is going to be our blue player VortiX playing as the French, and on the left side it's going to be the Holy Roman Empire in red. So it looks like he's not going for his English, he's going for the most old school civilization selection on this map. Back in the first days of Age of Empires 4, French was the go-to civilization on this map. Powerful economy, powerful map presence all across the game. So it is a civilization that could benefit quite a lot from this slightly more defensive position compared to an open map. On the other side, though, you have the Holy Roman Empire, a civilization that benefits a lot from being able to pick those relics up. But of course, for that you need to be able to secure map control, which could be quite difficult against the French. So that's going to be the first question here for Beasty. How is he going to be able to secure the relics for himself? If you look at the minimap, the relics are rather evenly distributed. There is 3 in between the players, 1 rather close to the place of each player. So at least 1 relic should be guaranteed over here for Beasty. The other 4, it's a question mark. Now, if he plays a fast castle style play over here and still goes for his Castle Age Knights, those will beat the potential Feudal Age Knights from VortiX. And that could be a way to secure map control, but we'll have to see how that unfolds. I'm curious to see how much Castle Age pressure, or excuse me, Feudal Age pressure, VortiX is going to apply on the opponent, because that's going to be the first major question of the game. Looks like we're just going to have a standard Dark Age opening for both players. Fast Feudal here, as we have 2 scouts operating for VortiX. He's going to be quite successful, collecting sheep, and you see he detached some of his sheep and added to the back of the other scout. So this way, one of the scouts can go back with all the sheep, and the other scout is able to just see what the opponent is up to. That's a very clever move. Even if this scout gets killed right now, you won't lose a single sheep. If he didn't just drop off the sheep at the other scout, he would be risking losing a couple of sheep over here in case the scout gets killed. Looks like Feudal Age is imminent here for our red player, Beasty. He's dropping off the Aachen Chapel on the Vood and the food. This is actually a very interesting topic to talk about, because Beasty has a specific mindset on placing the Aachen Chapel. Obviously, you want to incorporate as many resources as humanly possible, so ideally you place it in a way that it affects your food, Vood, and gold gatherers. However, I've spoken to Beasty about this one some time ago, and he said that the least important of the three is going to be the gold. Because you are going to rely very heavily on the Regnitz Cathedral delivering your gold income beyond Castle Age, so it's not so important to have your gold miners affected by the Aachen Chapel as compared to, let's say, having your food and wood villagers affected. So Beast's mindset here is that he wants to have the food and wood villagers affected by the Aachen Chapel instead of, let's say, having the food and gold villagers. And that's because he's believing in the power of the Regnitz Cathedral. But of course, that's assuming that he's able to secure the relics for himself, because if he cannot, then he's gonna have to make a new prelate to try and boost the gold miners as well. School of Cavalry on the way for VortiX, and that's, given the fact that he's mining wood, chopping wood, it's a possibility for him to go for an archer range as well. He's not very heavy on the wood department, though. For now, he's harassing the gold miners of the opponent with 2 scouts over here. No more animation canceling, which means that these scouts aren't particularly powerful. But 2 scouts versus 3 villagers is actually a good matchup over here. So far, Beasty hasn't reacted, and he's just going to wait until the last minute to pull off these vills, and he will heal them up with the prelates. So he doesn't have to worry about this one right now. Although, yep, here we go. It might be a little too late. Looks like VortiX isn't going to commit against those vills, so he's gotta be fine, and the prelate is just going to heal them back up. Bit of an annoyance over here for Beasty, but it's not something terrible. Now, the thing that could be more concerning is the first couple of knights potentially arriving, but instead it's going to be professional scouts build from VortiX. That's his game plan over here. He has built a mill, he's already researching professional scouts, but that means that he's not going to attack his opponent at all, which basically leaves Beasty a great opportunity to go for a fast castle or a semi-fast castle. He's coming in with the barracks as we speak. Those scouts still harassing those gold miners out there, but when the first spearman arrives, these scouts will be pushed away. So, once again, not a significant concern for Beasty. It's going to be a bit of a delay, but he's also lacking food for Castle Age, so it's not the end of the world for him that he's getting denied some of his gold income. Looks like an archer range is being placed by a French player, no surprise. In that department, you're expecting an archer range whenever you're playing the French and whenever you're having some knights on the battlefield already, especially if your opponent is fielding some spears. Looks like, for the time being, Beasty isn't going to be super committed to army production, he just wants to wall himself off. So this is going to be as meta as possible of a Holy Roman Empire build over here. Spearman will secure the front of his base. There's a forest out there, so you will always have to be careful to prevent the opponent from chopping through, especially given the fact that in the previous game, Beasty chopped through the forest to get into the opponent's base, so VortiX has seen that, hey, you're playing cheeky like that, I can play cheeky like that as well. That's going to be the hunt in the radius of the Aachen Chapel as well. You gotta love that only the huntables that were close to the mill position were killed. The ones that are further away were left alive, and you're just waiting for them to get close to the mill, and whenever they are close, you're just going to take them down. Looks like the walls will be completed, although there might be a hole between the cliff and the wall, and yeah, nope. It's a little difficult to see whether or not there is a hole in these situations, but it looks like there is no hole out there, and the walls are complete. The first knight here from our blue player isn't going to be successful at killing a villager or getting in, and I think in the middle there might be a section of the wall missing, but I think I'm wrong. So with that, all the walls are complete, and there is no chance for VortiX to break in here, and Beasty is already massing the resources here. VortiX is in trouble, because what is he exactly going to do now? Once we get to Castle Age, you're going to have the option to go Spearman or potentially Men-at-Arms as well for our red player. Knights could also be an option here. But the key thing is that right now, VortiX doesn't have an answer to the opponent's Castle Age. If you look at the resources banked up, it's halfway ready for Beasty. Whereas on the other side, VortiX has absolutely nothing in the bank. So he's investing a lot of resources into a feudal age push that might never materialize, because by the time he gets the resources and the army that he needs to push the opponent, his opponent is going to be up to Castle Age, he will sneak out 1 or 2 prelates, and he's going to start picking up those relics. Now, one of the things that the VortiX should do is leave 1 knight across the relics once you see the... Oh, villager. That's a chop through. That's a chop through, ladies and gentlemen. Same trick that was used before by Beasty now is going to be utilized by VortiX. The difference is that Beasty sees the villager and he knows very well what's coming. So what he needs to do is add a second layer of walls and ideally a tower. As you see, he's scrambling for that second layer of walls. He knows very well what's coming his way. And the tower is going to guarantee that the villager can't chop through 2 layers because the tower can just pick off the vill. That's not gonna work. That's not gonna work at all. Another attempt will be made on the other side. That's going to require a lot more effort though, because there's multiple trees to chop through. So you see, you're gonna have to chop through the first one, and I think there's at least 2 more trees to chop through over there. If VortiX can get in, then Beasty's in trouble. But I don't think that VortiX should be able to get in here, because Beasty knows very well that there's a chop through attempt here. So he's gonna have to just add layer after layer of walls. Beasty is actually a little low on gold. That's a bit of a mismanagement of the eco. You see he's at 485 with 0 income per minute. So he has the food, but he doesn't have the gold. Didn't have a lot of villagers working on gold. I assume he pulled the gold miners to make that happen. And now you see the villager is trying to go back home to drop off the wood, and he can't. Oh, that's a failure. That's a sad, sad, sad failure. The villager is now carrying all that wood back home. And there is the Ragnitz Cathedral coming in here for Beasty. He's building that with about 7-8 villagers. And once you get to Castle Age here, for Beasty, VortiX has to spread out his knights, and he's gonna have to try and deny those relics. That's his best bet here. But even that is going to be difficult, because you could see some knights appear on the battlefield for our red player, Beasty. And this is match point for him. This is a Swiss stage, which means that the player that loses is not eliminated. So that's good news for VortiX. But what is bad news right now is that, as I said, his opponent is in match point position, and VortiX is in trouble, because VortiX is quite far away from Castle Age. You're seeing a second barracks being dropped, so it's likely going to be Men-at-Arms play. Holy Roman Empire Men-at-Arms with the 200 weapons and the maces upgrade actually fare really well against heavy cavalry even. So they perform quite well against knights, especially if those are feudal age knights. And this is going to be the safest and best unit composition, I believe, for Beasty to go for. He's up to Castle Age right now, and now you see that there is trouble here for VortiX. There's a serious, serious trouble. Because he's trying to burn through those walls, but that's going to yield no result. He's denying the relic on the north this way, so there is at least some positives. But now that Beasty is up to Castle Age, he's eligible to build stone walls. He is not allowed to build it in feudal, but he's allowed to build them in castle. He doesn't have stone though, so it's not going to be stone walls. For now, it's just contingency layers of walls. You know how Beasty plays this one. Layer after layer after layer. It's really a playstyle that I myself... I would associate myself with such a playstyle, really, because this is such a methodical, slow-paced, and considerate approach. I love it. It's very frustrating to play against, because obviously you're trying to be aggressive and you're just bumping into layers of walls, but it's actually a very clever way to play the game, because you're severely limiting the opponent's ability to move across the map, and that's making it very difficult for you to get pushed. Oftentimes you see pro players dying to 1 or 2 cavalry raids. And one of the ways to try and battle that, or try and minimize the chances of that happening, is by adding a ton of walls. And that's exactly what Beasty's playstyle is made out of. Now, those walls are being taken down, and now you see the archers are opening up against the villagers. Suddenly, that wall layer isn't going to be completed. Now, the Men-at-Arms are increasing in numbers, and you see prelates are also moving out for the relics. So, the relics will be there for Beasty, the Men-at-Arms will be there. Upgrades are somewhat questionable, however. I didn't see the maces upgrade, didn't see 200 weapons. There is just the Castle Age Men-at-Arms upgrade right now, and you see Beasty's numbers are a little bit lackluster right now. Here come the knights. A couple of villagers will be picked off over here. Men-at-Arms will try to battle them, but without the maces upgrade, they're actually very bad against knights. Looks like the town center will provide shelter for some of the villagers, but this is a now or never for VortiX, and boy oh boy is this a now or never, because this is his window to potentially wipe out his opponent. There's only 6 villagers in that town center, and you see the ram is now targeting the barracks. Archers camping underneath the town center, they're picking off all the spears. Such a spectacular micro right now by VortiX, and as good as this looked like for Beasty just half a second ago, Now he's in serious trouble. Villagers, however, are being pulled to take down the battering ram, and it was a bit of a mismanagement of units here for VortiX. He's potentially going to lose the battering ram, which would help a lot. Vololo attempt coming in here from our red player. It's a little difficult to focus down that prelate, but it's going to get taken down. One of the barracks is now on fire. Emergency repairs was popped by the HRE player. You could see that over there. So the barracks is going to stay alive. And slowly but surely, VortiX's forces are getting taken down. 10 villagers advantage now for VortiX. And he's still burning down those buildings. Archers, however, are slowly getting cleaned up. And you gotta respect that, because the more archers are getting cleaned up, the easier it will be for those HRE spearmen to start taking on the knights. And VortiX is calling this assault off. A villager was sent over by our red player, Beastyqt, to wall that in. You can see that now there is a second layer of palisade that was finished. And this way, he's cutting off the income of reinforcements. You see that those archers can't break through right now, and that's going to give some breathing room for Beastyqt here. He has moved out to the south for his food eco for the berries, which is also a great way to sort of isolate the villagers from the danger. Very clever play as well over there, because this way, he's going to prevent the opponent from killing those bills, buying himself some time. He's got one relic right now in that Ragnitz Cathedral, and I think there is a second relic among these barracks, and he's ready to pick that up. Indeed, that's going to be 2 relics now. And I think, yeah, a third relic hasn't been picked up. All 3 are on the north, so the direction of the attack is actually hurting Beastyqt quite a bit, because he can't really move out for those relics right now without having those prelates being intercepted. Castle Age is getting closer and closer for VortiX. He's banking up the food. He doesn't really have the gold for this one, but I think he just wants to go for a feudal push here. He's making new rams. Man-at-arms are being added, but no 200 weapons, no maces, and that's going to have a severe impact on this game. Upgrades are also not spectacular for Beastyqt. He doesn't have the melee attack or melee defense upgrades. He has the range defense, but that's basically it. Knights, however, won't find any villagers, because one of the clever things that Beastyqt did was to escort those villagers outside of his base. So his opponent can't really find them. There's going to be a villager being picked off on the farm, 2 more potentially going down on the farms. And now you're seeing a market being scrambled up by Beastyqt. He's struggling for food. You can see he's struggling for food. He's got absolutely no food in the bank. Once again, the barracks will have emergency repairs going for it. I wonder if one of those rams are still damaged or it was repaired. Man-at-arms being built as we speak. And we've talked about this one many times. Age of Empires 4, as weird as it sounds like, is a game of patience. You gotta make sure that you wait for the critical mass of men-at-arms to push out here. And I don't think that this is the critical mass, but he might be tempted to push out, trying to burn down those rams. Looks like he's going to ignore the knights over here, as a monk is going to yoink one of the relics from the north, and the knights will be just ignored. That's a clever move once again from Beastyqt, because he's realizing that his opponent is looking for the villagers that are nowhere to be found, because all of them are on the southern part of the map, outside the walls, and now the men-at-arms can repel the rams. And suddenly, you have the window to close that wall and isolate all those knights from the rest of the army. Such a clever gameplay over here from Beastyqt. He's down by 20 villagers, which is quite disturbing, but keep in mind that he has the window to get back on track with the Palace of Swabia if he gets to Imperial. If he gets to Imperial. He's gonna have 3 relics under his control now. You see at the bottom of the screen, there's the 3rd relic moving in. So the Ragnitz Cathedral will be full. VortiX managed to get to Castle Age, however, so veteran knights will soon become a thing. Those knights could actually intercept the prelate before it drops off the relic. Looks like he managed to drop it off before dying, so valiant last effort over there by the monk. And now the prelates are moving outside. Once again, you're sort of trapping those knights within here. And that's the entire idea. You want to trap these knights in here and clean them up. Those knights will run around until eternity, really. They will just try to do as much damage as they can, keep running around and distract the opponent's army. Now you see the maces upgrade complete for our red player Beastyqt, as the two-handed weapons upgrade is actually missing for him still, but the maces is more important against the knights, so that's probably the priority. First layer of walls once again being broken through, archer reinforcements getting closer, but the men-at-arms numbers are increasing, and as I said, the HRE men-at-arms with 200 weapons and maces are very effective against all units that we have on the battlefield for VortiX. 33 army right now for VortiX, 22 only for Beastyqt. He is behind by 22 villagers, but he's got 3 relics in the Ragnitz Cathedral, and that attributes for quite a lot of villagers out there. So if you look at the ecos, those are actually slightly better even for Beastyqt potentially. He's going to pop emergency repairs once again on that barracks. Now it's 3 battering rams. Indeed, emergency repairs coming in right now for him. He's just trying to build up an as large force as humanly possible. Now he's unleashing the archers and the men-at-arms. I wonder if he has marching drills, which is one of the key upgrades for the HRE over here. That would increase the speed of those units. And look at that. He's detaching the spears from the army, knowing fully well that the archers will try to focus the spears. And now the man-at-arms will perform quite well against those knights, especially if the knights cannot charge in. And this is a fight that you sort of have to take right now if you're VortiX, simply because you can't afford to lose those archers to the man-at-arms. A pretty decent engagement, however, and if we are seeing some crossbows or arbaletier to be precise, for VortiX appear on the battlefield, he could take control over this battle once again, because the moment you have some arbaletier come in, you can suddenly start killing those man-at-arms very effectively. At the southern part of the map, you could see Beasty securing himself a little stronghold, shelter, so to say, so he's sort of giving up on his starting base to a certain extent. But he's still the defender, and he has struggled quite badly holding off these forces. Looks like he actually walled in these enemies, so for now his opponent can't leave, and this might be a window that's being used over here by Beasty. Here come the men-at-arms, and he's going to try and jump on this one. The spearmen did brace the charge of the knights, so at least the charge wasn't happening. Men-at-arms now taking a decent-ish fight against the knights over here, and you see, those men-at-arms with the maces are no joke. They're taking down knights quite effectively, and it looks like those knight numbers are slowly disappearing from the battlefield. Not a single arbaletier. The first one is just now climbing up that hill. The men-at-arms are not reinforcing their comrades, however, and this force up front is getting cleaned up. Most of the knights are now gone, so you gotta wonder if you're going to see some cavalry units now appear on the battlefield for Beasty, trying to deal with those archers. You see those men-at-arms are absolute beasts, and if they had 200 weapons, they would be even more powerful. They killed most of the knights, so now the army consists of mostly just archers and crossbowmen. So the best response now for Beasty would be a single mangonel to this one. He's still behind by 25 villagers, but he's got the Aachen Chapel, although it's not really affecting a ton of villagers. And the Regnitz Cathedral. Here come the stables, however. He's knowing that the opponent's cavalry numbers are almost non-existent right now. So this is your time to strike with the cavalry and wipe out that force of archers. And there are still 2 relics across the map, so you could pick those up as well. Garrison them into a keep, for example, or a monastery. You can garrison relics into keeps with the HRE as well, increasing their range, and you still get the gold income from it, so it's actually a very clever thing to do. We'll see if that's going to be a case for Beasty. Military numbers, still better for VortiX, however, and this might be a bit of an overextension here by Beasty. Moving out to the middle of the map with the infantry, he's going to encounter quite a lot of arbaletier, and those will just massacre all those men-at-arms. You're going to have to provide a buffer for them, the knights, but that's exactly what's happening, and the moment the arbaletier hit the field, those men-at-arms will just get wiped out, and that's exactly what we're seeing over here. Down south, Beasty is capturing a sacred site, so he's trying to compensate for his lower villager count by having relics, by having sacred sites, but this in the middle was an overextension, and his forces got wiped out in the middle. 18 army versus 35, so still double the army for VortiX over here. We're seeing some horsemen hit the field, which at the first glance could look weird, but that's the right unit here. The arbaletier would wipe out knights very easily, so you actually want to go for horsemen. First of all, they're cheaper than knights, but most importantly, they are very effective against both the arbaletier and the archers as well. Meanwhile, there is one scout inside the base of our blue player VortiX over here that has been doing quite a lot of harassment on those buildings. No major result of that, but what we have as a major result, however, is apparently VortiX was distracted. He just lost a ram for nothing. The men-at-arms broke out, and the ram was taken down. Second ram is now pushing through the middle, however, and it looks like the hunting operation of Beasty was found as well. For now, Beasty is massing the horsemen over here. He's a little low on food, so he still needs a little bit more time to mass these. Now the forces of VortiX, however, breaking into his base once again. It's 45 army versus 26 over here. Horseman hasn't been shown by Beasty up until now. He's coming in with the charge. The knights will have to shield the archers and the arbaletier from the horseman charge, and that they will do. With the arbaletier, you're trying to focus down those men-at-arms, and with your knights, you're trying to focus down the horsemen, but it's gonna be difficult. It's gonna be very difficult, especially because those horsemen will wipe out those arbaletier quite easily, and suddenly we could see VortiX on the retreat, although reinforcements of arbaletier are now coming in, and it looks like the horseman numbers are just being disappearing so quickly. So quickly, and this could be the game. This could be the game over here for Beasty, because now he's being overrun by superior numbers, 35 army versus 10. Arbaletier is saving the day over here big time for VortiX, because they were able to wipe out all the men-at-arms, and suddenly the unit composition is heavily in the favor of VortiX. The only thing that could help Beastyqt right now is a Mangonel. Like, in fact, 2 or 3 Mangonels with good Mangonel shots. He's trying to mix in some Landsknecht there, which could work, but as long as there is archers in the opponent's army, it's not going to work that well. If it was only Arbaletry, it would work, and there is a forward castle by VortiX. You could see for a brief moment that a couple of men-at-arms were sent over by Beasty to try and get some raiding damage done, but their effect will be minimal. That castle in your face is basically a death sentence to Beasty. He needs to stop that. That's not even a question right now. The problem for him is that, as I said, the archers will perform quite effectively against the Landsknechte, so as long as you have that in the army of our blue player, you won't be able to deal with that. Archer and Arbaletry combination is very difficult to deal with for the HRE without siege. Mangonels would work so well over here, but you don't have any of those for Beasty. Rams now knocking on that town center. A little bit of an overextension here from VortiX. He's going to lose one of those rams potentially. Indeed, one ram goes down. This is going to slow down his push a tiny bit, but still, you're going to have to take this castle down, prevent it from going up. Because if this castle goes up, I think it's game over, and it's going to be even more aggressive by our blue player VortiX, and he even plays the lumber camp foundation after it. He's so confident that he's going to make this castle that he basically shift-queued the next task for the villagers, which is making a lumber camp on that forest. He knows this castle is going up. He knows very well that he's got the presence here, that his opponent won't be able to fight. Horseman will try to jump on the battering ram once again, but how do you stop a keep like that? I have absolutely no idea. Mangonel is now coming out, however, this could be the game here. The only way Beast recovers is with some good Mangonel hits. The first Mangonel hit lands on top of the longbows. The second Mangonel hit coming out as well. That's going to miss its target, however, and the castle is up. Now the castle is going to open up against that Mangonel. The battering ram will be taken down by the horseman. The keep doesn't have boiling oil, so you can afford fights underneath it for at least a short period of time. Trebuchet could still save the day, if you have any, for Beasty trying to take that keep down, but he's definitely on the back foot. 75 villagers against 55, but the most important thing, having a keep in his face right now. Beasty now has 2 Mangonels out here, so you still gotta be careful if you're VortiX, especially because you will have a difficult time reinforcing your army with Springolds. A volley from 3 Mangonels would wipe out an entire army of Arbaletry, so you still have to be very careful, very cautious. There's another Siege Workshop coming out for Beasty. He's realizing that he needs some more beef on the battlefield. He needs siege weapons big time. Not only Mangonels, but also 1 or 2 trebuchets. That will be his way back into this game potentially by taking down that keep. Looks like the horsemen were sent north. I wonder if it's going to be a counterattack from him. The base of the opponent is still wide open. It looks like Mangonels will open up against that keep out there. There's a Springald emplacement on that keep. You can see the Springald firing from the keep. Villagers are being pulled to repair. It looks like the Mangonels will try to take that keep down, but that's going to be difficult. Archers crawling closer and closer to those Mangonels. You gotta be very careful here. No trebuchet just yet. And I think the horsemen of Beast are trying to counterattack, but they're sort of just leaving the base to the north. Siege Workshop's not coming up front for VortiX. That's a key move, because this way he's able to get some Springolds on the battlefield. What's even bigger is another chop-through attempt at the south. He fell to the chop-through attempt in the previous game, and now this is gonna be an absolute beauty of a move. He's chopping through the forest of the opponent over here. There's only 1 tree to cut down. The knights are in, and that's going to be a massacre. All those lumberjacks will be taken down. Those lumberjacks are the heart and soul of the siege production here from Beasty. Another nail in the coffin of Beasty. He's coming in with the Mangonels as we speak. The villagers will probably make it back home, but lumberjacking is just going to be a distant dream right now for Beasty. Mangonels, however, opening up against those Arbaletry, and that is an absolute massacre. A massacre, ladies and gentlemen. That's the reason why you have to be very careful with this push. Just 1 volley, wiping out the entire army over here from the opponent, and now the horsemen are launching counterattack. This is still a risky situation for VortiX to be in. He killed so many villagers, yet he has to be careful because now he's gonna be exposed back at home to the horseman counterattack. That is exactly the way that Beasty can climb back into this game. Hold off the enemy, try to launch counterattacks, exploit the fact that the opponent's base is completely undefended, and that's exactly what he's doing. He's counting down on the villagers count of the opponent as well. In his base, however, he still is facing a very significant threat. A keep out there now reinforced by Springolds. There's the first trebuchet that's firing at it, and you see quite a lot of Springolds are reinforcing as well. These knights and horsemen getting insane value for themselves. Minimal reaction from VortiX. He pulled his gold miners, but it seems like he's not pulling his farmers. There is space in that town center, but he didn't garrison them up until now. And you see, his underreaction here to a certain extent could be very painful because now those knights and horsemen will hit the gold miners. The lumberjacks are the absolute dream, however. Only a couple of knights in that army, and it looks like we're switching to a POV here. Beasty mostly focusing on his defense, but also microing that group of horsemen inside the base of the opponent. Trebuchet still shelling the castle of the opponent, and you see now some reinforcements have been called over here for VortiX to clean this up. Beasty is going to retreat. He will come back when there is no enemies coming around. And look at this. Once again, the flanking maneuver. He's sending those cavalry to the north, and simultaneously, he's sending the cavalry to the south. And the idea here is that he's pulling all those blue forces to the north right now, and he's going to send in 3 horsemen to the south to hit the VortiX of the opponent once again. Trebuchet is still active, shelling the castle. There is villagers nearby to repair, and they do repair. VortiX still at 400 food in the bank, or excuse me, 400 wood in the bank, and that is what you need to repair that keep. So he's going to have to start consuming his wood to repair that keep, but for now he's keeping it alive. And now you're seeing some walls come up back at home, which will make it very difficult, if not impossible, for VortiX to raid. VortiX still behind, or excuse me, Beasty is still behind by 25 villagers. Of course, he's got the Regnitz Cathedral with 3 relics, but that's basically it. Knights getting ready as well for VortiX. I wonder if he's just going to try and rush down those siege weapons with 1 knight push. He's getting 2 trebuchets shut up. He's realizing that he could just start shelling those buildings himself. Why not, right? Still 1 trebuchet out for our red player. Beasty over here, 2 trebuchets out now, however. And you're shelling the only town center that Beasty has, which means that Beasty isn't going to be able to make villagers. Now, the Arcane Chapel is close, so you could trap that one down as well for VortiX, but the Regnitz Cathedral is a little bit out of reach, so it would be difficult to take down all 3 landmarks that's available for Beasty. But Beasty has to be careful with this. Emergency repairs will be popped. Springolds are now rolling up to try and take down the trebuchets. What are we looking at here, Mr. Observer? Here comes the volley from the Springolds of Beasty. He managed to take down some of the Springolds of the opponent, and now he's committing. He's realizing that he's got the Springold number advantage, and that's going to be the first volley wiping out one of the trebuchets. The second volley is ready to wipe out the other one. Right now, Beasty cannot find an angle. He's going to open up against that Springold that's escaping, and you see this could be a retreat here from VortiX. It looks like for the time being. Beasty is calling off his forces. He's still using mangonels to try and take that castle down. 3 trebuchets are also set up as well. Now he's focusing on the siege workshops. He's realizing that he needs to take down those siege workshops. Mangonel now out. First mangonel shot comes in. Springolds will open up against that red mangonel out there. And now the cavalry has an absolutely perfect opportunity to jump on all of those Springolds. And that's exactly what we're seeing. The mangonels are the target here for our blue player. He's realizing that if the mangonels are gone, the arbaletieri and the archers can push up without any resistance, and that's exactly what you're seeing. All 3 mangonels have been taken down. This is the window for VortiX to push. Here comes a cavalry counterattack from behind, trying to get some damage done on those trebuchets. The trebuchets were taken down from VortiX. The trebs from our red player Beasty are still standing. Heavy repairs coming in here for VortiX, but now that's 3 trebuchets shelling that castle constantly, so I wonder how long you can keep that up. For now, VortiX is going to try it. He's still facing emergency repairs on the opponent's enemy town center. 31 villagers lead now, however, for VortiX. His opponent isn't able to increase his villager count because that town center is constantly under fire. That's the only place where Beasty can right now make villagers. Once again, looks like the Springolds are rolling up. Mangonel is also getting closer and closer. They want to kill the villagers behind that castle, and that is exactly what they will try to do. The volley comes out. The villagers jump into the keep in that very moment. The volley from the Springolds will finish off those blue siege weapons out there. But the castle still stands strong. Those repair villagers jumping into the keep was a spectacular move from VortiX. The moment the rocks started approaching their heads, they jumped into the keep. And this way, the keep is still staying alive, slowly being shelled by the opponent. It's costing a fortune for VortiX to repair that keep. However, it's worth it because he's applying a ton of pressure to the opponent's base, sort of suffocating Beasty right now. Beasty will soon have issues accessing resources because he's running out of resources at the back of his base. Beast needs that castle taken down. A 3rd trebuchet would be immensely helpful, I think, for him. Looks like some knights will be sent over to the north, trying to open up a new front line, get some raiding damage done. Looks like the villagers will be called off, and VortiX is running low on wood. If he runs out of wood, suddenly he won't be able to repair that castle, and that could be a serious concern. Very soon, these knights aren't finding anything. Looks like VortiX is just looking for villagers to kill, but there's nothing out there. Beasty has his entire eco inside his base. That's it. Now Beasty is moving out, however, so that could be perfect raiding damage here for VortiX if he finds it. But will he ever find it? Because he just sent all the knights back to the middle. Castle is now burning, still being shot by multiple trebuchets out there. And that is going to be the arbaletier and the archers moving up. You gotta be careful here because the mangonels are ready to set up. Mangonels unleashing the first volley out there. The second volley could be a reality very soon. Second volley coming out from the mangonels. That is going to hit the arbaletier. Springolds from our red player taking down the siege weapons of VortiX here. And now you see the infantry flooding all those arbaletier and the archers. The moment those archers stop, the mangonels will clean them up. The castle gets taken down over here by the trebuchets, and it's a full retreat for VortiX. He can't stop with those archers. The moment he stops, he's going to get wiped out by the mangonel fire. Springolds also supporting quite heavily against that. And despite the fact that the arbaletier is a counter unit to the men-at-arms, without a meat shield in front, without any kind of weapon to take down the opponent's mangonels, that's going to be insufficient. Now, if you're Beasty, you have to be careful with the overextension, because as you get closer and closer to the opponent's base, reinforcements will swing the battle back in the favor of VortiX. But this is a cleanup by Beasty. He lives to see another day, and it looks like the game will continue on beyond the 33-minute mark. Still, 30 plus villager advantage for VortiX, but you still have 3 relics for Beasty, and now he's playing his best playstyle, the trench warfare. He's slowly volleying up sections of the map using those forests out there, and this way he's gaining more and more map control. He's got the neutral market on the left side of the map, and he actually has a relic inside those walls as well, so he could pick that 4th relic up for himself. He's still behind by quite a lot of villagers, but if he ever wants to get to Imperial, this would be the time. Look at the gold count he has. 2.6k, his opponent is not pushing him. It's time to balance your eco, get to Imperial, and just go up to Imperial Age with the Pass of Swabia, recuperate your villager losses. That's the power of the HRE over here. You can basically get to Imperial and compensate for all your villager losses, and I do believe that we are seeing something like that. That gold count is decreasing quite a lot and the food count is increasing. I wonder if we are seeing him slowly balancing his eco and getting up to Imperial. Looks like VortiX is going to renew his attack in the middle. He's nowhere close to Imperial, and that's a lot of villagers. Holy potatoes, is that a lot of villagers. What are they going for? They're on a mission, that's for sure. VortiX doesn't have enough stone for a keep, however, so you really gotta wonder where those villagers are going. They're just going for stone and wood. It looks like VortiX himself is having trouble accessing forests, which is a little surprising because there are some safe forests nearby, or maybe he wanted to drop a castle, he just didn't have the stone for it. Whatever happened over here, now there's a ton of villagers that could be exposed to aggression out here. Looks like Beasty decided not to go into Imperial because he's still floating quite a lot of gold. There is going to be a keep being dropped right now by our red player, Beasty. That's going to be difficult to stop for VortiX. VortiX isn't really in a position to push this one. He's going to try it, but there's a lot of mangonels set up. That's at least 4 mangonels to fire upon those bad guys. And look at that, the villagers, what are they going for? Is this a desperate effort? It feels like a desperate effort. The villagers are trying to rush down this castle, but this is going to turn into a massacre. 4 mangonels setting up right now, unleashing death and destruction. The villagers will have to call off this assault, and now Beasty sees the blood in the water. It is match point for him right now. He sees his opponent's desperation because for a brief moment, it seemed like his opponent is going to send villagers into a fight, and now with 4 mangonels and no springolds available for VortiX, it's going to be difficult to deal with all those mangonels out there. A defensive keep will now be built by VortiX, but you're seeing Beasty gain more and more ground, and it's getting increasingly worrisome for our player in the blue colors, because once we get to Imperial Age, which is a reality still for Beasty, he's gonna be able to compensate for those villager losses, and from that point on, every single thing will be favoring our red player. The only thing that right now is going in the favor of VortiX is the eco. Right now, Beasty has 70 eco, 101 army, however. And keep in mind, he also has the 3 relics in the Regnitz Cathedral, and he could pick up a 4th one on the north. Looks like it's going to be an Imperial Age first for VortiX, however, he's placing the Red Palace out there. We've talked about this landmark. This is a landmark that's extremely powerful in the defense, difficult to take down, tremendous amount of firepower. So this is going to give a huge buffer here for VortiX, because this is difficult to take down, although if there are any weapons that can easily take it down, or at least rather easily take it down, that could be traps, because they outrange it by a massive margin. Imperial Age is not far away from Beasty either. You see, he's banking up a ton of resources, especially if he's going to the Palace of Swabia. He doesn't need as much food, he just needs 1900. VortiX is an imp, and this should be a sign for Beasty that he needs to go into Imperial ASAP. So I would expect him to buy himself the food he needs, go up with the Palace of Swabia very soon, because now his opponent has Imperial Age, so we could see Elite Royal Knights, we could see the Biology upgrade, we could see the range advantage, or the range upgrade coming in for the Springolds, we could see some cannon come out. Royal Culverines is not an option, because he decided to go up with the Red Palace instead of the College of Artillery, but long-range Springolds, cannon, that's probably going to be your addition over here, for at least for the time being. There is the Palace of Swabia being built right now by Beasty. Yep, indeed it is. He's going to drop it back at home. He's still behind by about 30 villagers, but by the time he gets to Imperial, he honestly doesn't need to make that many villas out of the Palace of Swabia. So with the HRE, you're probably aiming for around 90, 95 villas, especially if you have 3 relics in the Ragnitz Cathedral. So it's not like he's going to utilize that Palace of Swabia extensively. Trebuchet is now shelling the Red Palace over here, villagers being pulled to repair. That's going to be expensive to do, so I'm not sure how long he can sustain repairing the Red Palace out here, but he also can't afford to lose it. Looks like we're going to have some knights moving to the southern part of the map as VortiX is trying to open up something on the south. Beasty is focusing all his efforts towards the middle. It's only 54 army for VortiX as opposed to 107 from his opponents, as we will now have Imperial Age as well for our red player, meaning that you can get the Elite Man-at-Arms upgrade for yourself, you can get the long-range Springolds upgrade as well for yourself. So, once again, it's even-steven in terms of unit composition, I would say. Elite Arbaletier now already in for VortiX. There is still a window for him to push before his opponent gets the Imperial Age upgrades, but now you see Beasty crawling up with towers, fortifying those with the fortification upgrade. So this way, he's going to have a very difficult fortification to destroy. And this is going to be tough for VortiX, because even if VortiX is able to launch a counterattack somehow, he's going to have to go through all of those fortifications, and that's going to be difficult. Springolds now for VortiX, using that extra range, trying to snipe down the ones from the opponent, and the Red Palace gets taken down, and now it's going to be difficult to repair. You see the wood is out. VortiX is completely out of wood over here. Now the Knights trying to loop around over here, trying to hit the eco, but that's not going to work out at all. I think they're actually getting in. Yeah, they're getting in. The walls weren't completed, so the Knights are able to get in. I don't think it's going to be a big deal, because Beasty is going to be able to just clean it up with a couple of Knights and Spearmen, and now his direct push is getting more and more dangerous. His opponent, VortiX, has been building some Springolds for some time, but the Springold numbers are still better for the opponent, and you gotta be careful with those Arbaletier, because if the Mangonels can open up against them, it's game over, and it looks like it's game over. Beastyqt takes game number 3 over here as well. The players are standing up. That's the end of the set. VortiX gets taken down 3-1 by Beasty. I think one of the bigger surprises of the day that we're seeing over here. VortiX was potentially considered one of the candidates to win the entire tournament. Beasty playing very standard meta, but very resilient, very considerate and smart gameplay, especially in that King of the Hill game. He has really shown why he deserved his spot in the N4C, and he is a force to be reckoned with. He might be a player that's playing meta and not coming in with anything surprising. He's playing very smart, he's playing very skilled, and whatever he does, that's executed perfectly. And with that, he's going to take the third game, actually the fourth game of the set, and take down VortiX over here 3-1. Of course, it doesn't mean that VortiX is eliminated, he just falls down to a lower part of the Swiss bracket. But given the fact that you are facing a ton of excellent players over here in this tournament, every win is insanely important. Beastyqt, confident, 3 games over here that he won, and he actually lost the Arabia game to, I believe, the Mongols of the opponent. Indeed, he lost that Mongols against English. Even that game, he had some moments himself, but ultimately, he just seemed a little more convincing today compared to VortiX. Beastyqt takes the entire set over here, and VortiX will fall lower on the bracket.